The ACT science section is probably the most misunderstood section of the exam, and for that reason, it is probably the most feared section of the exam. It's actually infamous for striking fear into the hearts of students, and that's really too bad because the section, if viewed correctly, really isn't all that hard. So today I'm going to tell you how you should be looking at it and give you a couple of different tools you can use to improve your score. So first and foremost, what's the big understanding or misunderstanding about the ACT science section? It is this: the ACT science section isn't actually a science test. It isn't actually a typical science test. And what I mean by that, it is not a test of your pre-existing scientific knowledge. All of the information about science, all the scientific information you need to get a really good score is actually right there in the passages. So all you need to do is find that information. You don't have to be a science whiz in order to find that information. So how does the test writer make the section difficult? Because it's not by putting a bunch of really, hard to find out or difficult scientific knowledge-based questions in there. How do they make it difficult? The way I put it is by adding a lot of noise. And what I mean by noise is primarily three things. One, the text in the passages themselves is very, very wordy. The textual portion of the passages is extremely long-winded. As you know, anything that's super, super wordy is difficult to follow. The wordier it is, the more difficult it is to follow. That's why, English teachers are composition teachers are constantly harping on us to simplify things and to make things more concise, right? For the sake of our readers. Well, the ACT science section goes in the opposite direction, and that makes things hard. That's a form of noise. Secondly, a lot of scientific jargon, a lot of unnecessary, unhelpful scientific jargon that does nothing but add to the wordiness and also has that intimidation factor. You're reading through a science passage and it's like, oh my gosh, there's all this crazy language that I'm completely unfamiliar with. I feel so inadequate. I can't do this. Deer in headlights syndrome. The brain shuts down and there goes the score. The third form of noise is that it's logically, things tend to be pretty convoluted on the ACT science section, particularly in the questions. The questions can get long and logically convoluted. Now, I'm not saying there's bad logic. The logic is all sound. It's just kind of pretzel-like. It all works out if you do the math, but it's difficult to follow. So that's how they make the section difficult. What do we do about it? Well, first and foremost, just understanding that it's not a standard science test, it's a test of your scientific knowledge, will sort of save you from doing things that really are a waste of time. And a lot of students in preparation for the science section will study a lot of science. Oh, I better bone up on my chemistry. I better bone up on my astronomy. I better, review this and that. Or if I haven't studied this scientific subject, I better study it. That's actually not going to help you. As I said, all the information you need scientifically is in there. All you have to do is find it. So one, don't spend a lot of time studying science. That's not the best use of your time. Two, avoid the text in the passages. I just said that the primary weapon they have is noise. Most of that shows up in the text, obviously. So avoid it. Go straight to the questions. Don't try to understand ACT science sections as a whole. Don't try to get a handle on the big picture. The entire section is designed specifically to make it next to impossible for you to get a handle on the big picture, and doing so is absolutely unnecessary for you to get a really nice score. So go straight to the questions. With rare exceptions, you're going to go straight to the questions, and when you get to the questions, focus on what we call locators. Those are words and phrases in the questions themselves that will tell you where in the passage, usually on a graph or in a table, to look for the answer. those are just a couple of very basic things you can do to improve your ACT science score. Obviously, there are lots of other tactics. For more of those tactics, there's a really great book I highly recommend. It's called For the Love of ACT Science. In either the comments below or somewhere above this video, you will find a link to my website. If you're interested in increasing your ACT science score and finally, cutting through the BS and finding methods and tactics that actually work, I strongly recommend you click that link and pick up a copy of that book. That's all for today. I will see you next time.